It was one of those days when the world seemed to stand still, the kind of day where the sky was a washed-out gray, and the rain fell in sheets, turning the streets of downtown Los Angeles into rivers of reflection. People hurried by, heads down, hands clutching umbrellas and bags. In the distance, the towering skyscrapers loomed, indifferent to the human chaos below. But in the middle of this grayness, a little girl with a sandwich in her hands stood in front of a food bank, waiting. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Her name was Lily. She was just 7 years old, with messy brown hair and a heart full of hope. Her mother had always told her that kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. She didn't quite understand what that meant, but today, she was going to try. Lily had spent the morning at her school's charity drive. The food bank had opened its doors to families in need, and Lily had packed a lunch for herself that morning, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the kind her mother had made before heading off to work. She hadn't planned on giving it away, but something about the event made her want to do something more than just hand over cans of soup and boxes of cereal. She was going to give her sandwich to someone who might need it more than she did. She'd walked around for a while, clutching the sandwich in her hands, trying to figure out who she should give it to. Then, she saw him. At first, it was just a blur. But as the crowd parted, there he was, Elon Musk. He was surrounded by a small group of people, his bodyguard keeping everyone at a safe distance. The crowd didn't seem to recognize him immediately, and Lily's heart skipped a beat. She had seen him on the news, read about his latest ventures in space and technology, but to see him in person, just standing there, was a moment of magic. Lily, never one to shy away from a challenge, felt an overwhelming surge of courage. She stepped forward, her little sneakers making soft splashes on the wet ground. She didn't know what she was going to say, but she had to do it. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely audible over the noise of the crowd. Elon turned, slightly surprised by the soft voice. His eyes met hers, and he smiled warmly. There was something about the way he looked at her, almost as if he could see past the surface. He knelt down to her level, his tall frame bending slightly. "Yes, young lady?" he asked, his voice soft but with an underlying curiosity. Lily held up the sandwich, its white bread squished slightly by the pressure of her tiny fingers. "I thought you might like this," she said, her words hesitant but earnest. "I made it myself. It's peanut butter and jelly, with extra jelly. I heard you like space and I thought maybe you might need a snack." For a moment, there was silence. Elon blinked, his brow furrowing as if trying to process the simplicity of what was happening. A little girl, in the middle of a busy charity event, offering him a sandwich. It wasn't something he expected, not at all. He looked down at the sandwich and then back at Lily, his mind momentarily frozen. The gesture was so pure, so genuine, that it took him by surprise. He had dealt with billion-dollar contracts, the pressures of running companies that could change the world, and the intense media scrutiny that came with being one of the most influential men on the planet. But here, in this simple moment, he was being offered something so basic, so human. A sandwich. I don't know what to say," Elon said, his voice softened by the weight of the moment. Lily's eyes brightened, and she gave him a shy, hopeful smile. "You don't have to say anything. You can just take it." And that's what he did. He took the sandwich from her hands, the weight of the bread small but symbolic. He took a small bite, his eyes still locked with hers. "Thank you," he said, his voice catching slightly. It was an odd, unexpected moment of connection. Here was this child, this small, bright spark in a sea of people, offering him the one thing he could never get enough of in his fast-paced world: simplicity and human connection. Lily's smile grew wider as she turned to leave, her heart light. But before she could take a step, Elon spoke again. "You know," he began, his voice low but filled with a sincerity that surprised even him, "sometimes it's the small things that make the biggest difference. I hope you never forget that." Lily nodded, not fully understanding the weight of his words, but feeling their importance in her chest. She had done something good today, something that felt right. "Bye, Mr. Musk," she called over her shoulder as she skipped back into the crowd, her small form vanishing among the grown-ups. Elon stood there for a moment, sandwich in hand, as the crowd buzzed around him. He hadn't expected his day to take this turn, but here he was, standing in the middle of a food bank with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The simplicity of it all made him pause. He watched Lily disappear into the crowd, her small act of kindness like a ripple in the ocean, reaching far beyond its humble beginning. In that brief moment, something inside him stirred, a recognition that, perhaps, the world needed more of this, more of her. As the day wore on and the event continued, Elon couldn't shake the image of the little girl and her sandwich. It was strange, he thought, how a single moment like this could change everything. He wasn't sure yet what that change would look like, but he knew that his world was about to be different. Lily had no idea the effect her simple act of kindness would have on Elon Musk. Nor did she know that, 7 days later, something truly amazing was about to happen. Lily Thompson wasn't your average 7-year-old. While most children her age spent their afternoons running around playgrounds or watching cartoons, Lily found herself often lost in thought. Her little world was made up of simple things. The worn-out picture books that her mom had bought for her at yard sales, the dog-eared notebook where she sketched stars and rockets, and the small patch of garden outside their apartment where she tried to grow sunflowers and daisies. Her mother, Carla Thompson, was a hard-working woman who juggled 2 jobs, one at a coffee shop downtown and another as a part-time office assistant. Carla's life hadn't been easy, but she always managed to smile, always kept the apartment clean, and never let Lily feel the weight of their financial struggles. They lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city where the noise of the traffic felt like a distant hum, but the warmth of their little family kept things cozy. Lily loved her mom with all her heart, but she understood the sacrifices Carla made every day. She had seen the exhaustion in her mother's eyes when she came home late at night, her hands tired from washing dishes, her feet sore from standing on concrete floors. And though Lily didn't fully grasp the complexities of money, bills, and rent, she understood enough to know that they weren't wealthy. But she also knew that there was something far more important than money, the love they shared. One of Lily's favorite things in the world was when her mom would sit down beside her at the end of the day. They'd both snuggle on the couch, wrapped in a thick blanket, and Carla would tell her stories about the stars. Carla had always been fascinated by space. She had grown up reading about astronauts, rockets, and the vast universe beyond, and she passed that wonder on to her daughter. It was her way of reminding Lily that no matter how tough life got, there were bigger things out there to dream about. Lily's dreams, it seemed, were made of stars. Every night before bed, she would gaze out the window of their apartment, her eyes fixed on the tiny dot of light in the sky that she liked to imagine was a spaceship carrying her to some far-off planet. She had a collection of books about space, and though she couldn't read them all just yet, she would flip through the pages, imagining what it would be like to visit the moon or to meet astronauts. But Lily didn't just dream about space. She had big dreams about changing the world, too. At school, she often found herself talking to her classmates about kindness, about how it could make a real difference, no matter how small the gesture. She had learned from her mom that kindness was a way of showing love, something that could heal wounds, brighten days, and even change the course of someone's life. Her school wasn't the best. It was overcrowded, and the teachers were often overwhelmed with larger classes. But Lily's teacher, Mrs. Harper, was an exception. She took a special interest in Lily, recognizing the spark in her eyes and the way she always seemed to want to help. Mrs. Harper often told Lily that she had the heart of a leader, and it was those words that had stuck with her. She didn't really know what that meant at the time, but she knew one thing for sure. She wanted to help people. She wanted to make a difference. It was the reason Lily had made the decision that morning to pack her peanut butter and jelly sandwich, to walk all the way to the food bank, and to give it away. She knew it wasn't much, but she figured that kindness was like a seed. It could grow, and it might one day change the world, just like Mrs. Harper had said. As the weeks passed, Lily's small act of kindness began to ripple outward. People around the community started talking about the little girl who had given a sandwich to Elon Musk. At first, it was just a small, local buzz, a feel-good story that warmed hearts. But then it caught fire, spreading across social media, picked up by news outlets, and before long, Everyone in the city knew about the girl with the sandwich. Lily's classmates teased her about it at first. "Hey, you gave a sandwich to the richest man in the world. What are you gonna do next? Become an astronaut?" They'd joke. Lily would laugh along with them, but deep down, she believed there was truth to their words. She had no idea that her small act of kindness would ripple out to such an extent, let alone how it might affect her future. But she was starting to understand one thing. When you do something good, no matter how small, it creates waves. She had given Elon Musk a sandwich, but in the process, she had opened a door to something far bigger than herself. She didn't know it yet, but that sandwich was the spark that would light the fire of something extraordinary. Elon Musk was not a man who had ever been good at staying still. To the world, he was the billionaire founder of SpaceX, Tesla, and a multitude of other companies that straddled the line between science fiction and reality. He was a man who lived in the future, always looking for the next innovation, the next breakthrough, the next frontier to conquer. And yet, for all his accomplishments, his life felt increasingly unmoored, a paradox of infinite possibilities and crushing isolation. Elon had grown up in South Africa, the son of an engineer and a model. His childhood was anything but idyllic. He was the target of bullies, often alone, with books as his only refuge. He buried himself in science fiction and fantasy, feeding his wild imagination with stories of space, technology, and distant worlds. It was this early obsession with the stars that led him to the United States in the early 90s, where he would eventually pursue his dreams of transforming humanity's future. But no matter how successful he became, Elon never quite shook the feeling of being an outsider. He was always a few steps ahead of everyone around him, always thinking about what could be, never fully grounded in what was. As a child, he had imagined building rockets and colonizing Mars. As an adult, he was doing it. But the cost of this ambition had been high. His relationships had suffered, and he had found it difficult to connect with people, even those closest to him. He had been married 3 times, each marriage ending in separation, leaving him feeling more isolated than ever. The intense focus required to build his empire had drained him of the emotional bandwidth to nurture friendships or build lasting personal connections. Despite all his wealth, despite all his accomplishments, there were nights when he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it had all been worth it. Could he truly make a difference? Or had he just become a cog in the machine of capitalism, creating products that people wanted, but leaving a legacy that felt hollow? It was on one of these restless nights that he came across the story of Lily Thompson. It had started as a small piece of news, buried in a local online article. A little girl, 7 years old, had given Elon Musk a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at a food bank event. It wasn't the kind of story that usually caught his attention, but there was something about it, something that made him pause. He read through the details, the heartwarming story of the girl's kindness, her belief that one small act of generosity could change the world. It was a simple gesture, but it was one that stirred something deep inside him. For the first time in a long while, Elon felt something akin to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than the ceaseless race to revolutionize the world with technology. That perhaps, in the most unexpected places, there were lessons to be learned about what truly mattered. Lily's act of kindness stayed with him. The image of the little girl, smiling as she handed him the sandwich, lingered in his mind like a soft glow. It was a moment of purity, of untainted hope, and it was precisely what Elon needed. It was like a mirror, reflecting back a part of himself he had long ignored. The part that still believed in the power of human connection, the part that still remembered the wonder of the stars. As days passed, Elon found himself thinking more and more about Lily. What would it be like to see the world through her eyes? To believe in the possibility of simple kindness making a difference? In his world, everything was calculated, engineered, and designed. Even his personal life was planned with military precision. But here was Lily, a child with no agenda other than to help, to make a small difference in a world that often seemed indifferent to kindness. And in her, Elon saw a reflection of the dreams he once had as a child. Dreams not of rockets and Mars, but of something more human, of changing lives, of making the world a better place for those who needed it most. The truth was, He hadn't been the same since that day at the food bank. He had continued his work at SpaceX and Tesla, pushing forward with relentless ambition. But something had shifted. He had started asking himself deeper questions about his purpose. Was he merely building machines that would take humanity to new frontiers? Or was there a way to use his influence, his wealth, to make a tangible difference in the lives of the people who didn't have the same opportunities he had? He thought back to Lily's smile, to her words about kindness. And in the quiet moments of the night, he began to ask himself, what if this is the real mission? As if in answer, Elon decided he would do something he had never done before. He would reach out to Lily, not as a billionaire or an entrepreneur, but as someone who had been moved by the simplest act of kindness. And maybe, just maybe, it would be the beginning of something bigger, something that went beyond rockets and electric cars. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Lily's world tilted in a way she couldn't have possibly imagined. She was sitting at the kitchen table, coloring a picture of a rocket ship soaring into the stars, when the phone rang. Carla, her mom, was putting away groceries and didn't hear it right away. Lily, on the other hand, jumped up and sprinted to the phone like it was the most important call of her life. Hello? Lily's voice was small, but eager, as she pressed the receiver to her ear. Is this Lily Thompson? A deep voice asked. It was calm, authoritative, but warm, like a familiar tone in the distance. Lily froze for a moment. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was it really him? Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is Lily. This is Elon Musk, the voice on the other end said, causing Lily's stomach to flip. I just wanted to thank you for the sandwich you gave me last week. Lily's hand shook slightly, the phone feeling heavy in her palm. She glanced at her mom, who had come out of the kitchen and was watching her with wide eyes. Mr. Musk? Lily stammered, unsure how to respond. You're calling me? I am, Elon said with a laugh, his voice light. And I have to tell you, I've been thinking a lot about what you did. A lot more than I expected to, actually. Lily couldn't believe it. She had only given him a sandwich, a simple, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and here he was, calling her. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Her mom, Carla, stepped over to her side, her eyes scanning the room as if she were looking for some kind of proof that this was actually happening. I was wondering, Lily, if you might want to meet with me sometime soon. Maybe talk more about why you think kindness matters, and how we can use it to make a bigger impact on the world. I believe we could learn a lot from each other. Lily's mouth went dry. She didn't know what to say. The words felt too big, too important, for someone like her. She glanced at her mom for help, but Carla was staring at the floor, wide-eyed and speechless. It seemed like she was frozen in time. After a long silence, Lily finally managed to say, Of course, Mr. Musk. I'd love to. Great, Elon replied, his voice warm and reassuring. I'll have my assistant arrange a meeting. It'll be just you and me. We'll talk, and I'll listen. The conversation ended soon after, and Lily sat down, still gripping the phone. Her fingers were numb, her mind racing. The room seemed to spin around her. Lily, honey, are you okay? Carla finally asked, coming closer, her voice soft but concerned. I think I just talked to Elon Musk, Lily said, her words coming out in a daze. She was still trying to process what had just happened. Carla stood still for a moment, her eyes wide. Then, slowly, she sank into the chair next to Lily. You talked to Elon Musk? Carla whispered, as though the name alone held the weight of 1,000 worlds. Lily nodded slowly, her head still spinning. He said he wanted to meet with me, that we could talk about kindness. Carla took a deep breath, staring at the wall, as if trying to put the pieces together in her mind. This is a big deal, Lily. Are you sure? I mean, he's a billionaire. He doesn't just talk to people like us. People like you. Lily frowned, unsure what to make of her mom's words. But he called me because of the sandwich, Lily said softly. It wasn't because of anything else. He wants to learn about kindness, about what matters. Carla turned to look at her daughter, her face softening. I know, honey. I know. But this is huge. This is beyond anything I could have imagined. We'll have to be careful. I don't want you to get too caught up in all of this. Do you understand? Lily nodded, her mind still buzzing. She had no idea what was coming next, but the truth was, she was starting to feel like something important was unfolding. She wasn't just a little girl anymore. She was part of something bigger, something that could change the world. The following week, Elon Musk's assistant called again to confirm the details. The meeting would be at a private office, a small, intimate space that Elon had personally arranged just for them. Carla would drive Lily there, but it would be a short visit, an hour, maybe less. The thought of it made Lily's heart race. What would they talk about? What did Elon really want to hear from her? The morning of the meeting, Lily couldn't focus on anything. She couldn't eat breakfast. She couldn't concentrate on her homework. Her mind kept drifting to the one question that haunted her. What does a billionaire want to know about kindness? When they arrived at the office building, a sleek, glass and steel structure in the heart of the city, Lily felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. The lobby was empty, except for a few polished chairs and a receptionist who greeted them warmly. "Elon's expecting you," the receptionist said with a smile, as she led them to the elevator. The doors slid open, and Lily stepped inside with her mom, feeling like she was entering a completely different world. The elevator doors opened onto a private floor, and they walked down a long hallway to a large, open office. Elon Musk was sitting at a table, a laptop open in front of him. He stood when they entered, smiling broadly, and waved them over. "Lily, I'm so glad you came," he said, his tone casual but sincere. "Please sit down. Let's talk." Lily hesitated for just a moment, her nerves still fluttering, but she sat across from him, feeling the weight of the moment. Elon smiled warmly, his expression almost childlike in its openness. He didn't seem like the powerful, untouchable man the world made him out to be. He was just a man who wanted to understand something simple, something pure. "Tell me," he said, leaning forward slightly, "what do you think kindness can do for the world?" Lily took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long while, she felt ready. She looked him in the eye, her voice steady but filled with hope. "I think kindness can change everything. It can turn bad days into good ones, make people feel seen when they're invisible, and give them hope when they think there's none left. Kindness isn't small. It's the biggest thing we have. And if we keep spreading it, maybe one day, it'll be enough to change the world." Elon sat back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. He was listening, really listening, as if her words were the key to something he hadn't understood before. "I think you're right," he said quietly. And for the first time in years, Elon Musk felt something stir deep inside him. A feeling that was stronger than his love for technology, stronger than his obsession with the future. It was hope. The meeting with Elon Musk was unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. She had expected him to be intimidating, distant, and perhaps a little too focused on business to care about the words of a 7-year-old girl. But nothing about that meeting felt like business. It felt personal. It felt real. As the conversation continued, Elon listened intently to everything Lily had to say. She told him about the way she'd grown up with her mom, about their modest apartment, and how Carla worked tirelessly to make ends meet. She spoke about her dreams of spreading kindness, how she believed that small acts could make a massive difference. Elon didn't interrupt or offer advice right away. Instead, he simply nodded, absorbing her words with an intensity that made her feel like the most important person in the room. After a few moments of silence, Elon leaned forward, his eyes focused on her with a curiosity that surprised her. "You know, Lily," he said slowly, "the world needs more people like you. People who believe in kindness. People who understand that small actions can ripple out into something far bigger than we can ever imagine." Lily didn't know how to respond to that. It felt like a compliment, but also like a challenge. A challenge she didn't fully understand yet. "Thank you, Mr. Musk," she said softly, suddenly feeling a little unsure of herself. Elon smiled. "Call me Elon," he said, "and you can keep calling me Mr. Musk once you've built your own empire." His playful tone made Lily giggle, and for a moment, the world outside the office felt far away, like it was just the two of them in a bubble of possibility. The conversation took a turn as they began discussing how they might collaborate. Elon seemed genuinely intrigued by the idea of kindness as a powerful force for change, something that went beyond monetary donations or corporate social responsibility. He wanted to build something tangible, something that could spark a global movement of compassion. He asked Lily if she'd ever thought about starting her own foundation, something that could directly focus on inspiring people to do small acts of kindness that could lead to major changes. For the next hour, they brainstormed together. Elon shared ideas about how technology and social media could be leveraged to amplify kindness. He spoke of how a simple hashtag or viral video could make waves, touching millions. But more importantly, he was listening to Lily, letting her lead the conversation. His usual rapid-fire thinking slowed down, and for once, it felt like he was more interested in someone else's vision than his own. When the meeting came to an end, Elon stood up and shook her hand. "You have the potential to change the world, Lily," he said, "and I'm going to help you get there." Lily didn't quite know what to make of it. She was still a little dazed, still processing the fact that she had just spent over an hour with one of the most famous men in the world. But something inside her stirred, something deep and unshakable. Maybe Elon Musk was right. Maybe this was just the beginning. When Carla and Lily got back to the apartment, Carla asked what had happened in the meeting, her eyes searching Lily's face for any clue about what had transpired. "It was amazing," Lily said, her voice filled with a mix of wonder and disbelief. She sat down at the kitchen table, her fingers still tingling from shaking Elon's hand. "He wants to help me start a foundation. For kindness." Carla blinked, processing the words, and then looked at her daughter as if seeing her for the first time. "A foundation? For kindness?" she repeated slowly. "Yes," Lily said, a determined spark in her eyes. "He said he wants to make kindness something that everyone can see and feel, like a big, worldwide movement, like something that will make people remember that no matter how small the act, it can still make a huge difference." Carla sat down beside her, her face softening with a mixture of pride and worry. "That's incredible, Lily. But do you think you're ready for all this?" Lily smiled, the uncertainty gone from her voice. "I think I've always been ready, Mom. I just didn't know how to start. But now I have a chance." Carla took a deep breath and pulled her daughter into a hug. "You have always been ready," she whispered, "but you're still my little girl. Just remember, you don't have to do this alone. You have me, and I'll support you every step of the way." Lily nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in her life, she truly felt like she was on the edge of something amazing, something bigger than anything she could have ever dreamed of. The next few weeks flew by in a blur. Elon's team worked tirelessly to set up everything from logistics to the launch of the foundation. Lily's mom helped in every way she could, from designing flyers to managing social media accounts, while Lily worked hard on refining her vision for the organization. She knew that kindness didn't have to be grandiose, it just had to be real. They named the foundation Ripple of Kindness, a simple name that captured the essence of their mission: to create small waves of goodness that could build into something monumental. The goal wasn't just to encourage random acts of kindness. It was to create a movement where kindness became the default response in a world that too often forgot how powerful a simple smile or gesture could be. The Foundation's first initiative was a viral challenge, #KindnessRipple. People from all over the world were encouraged to post a video or story about an act of kindness they had experienced or done, no matter how small. The videos flooded in, young and old, rich and poor, from every corner of the globe. It was an overwhelming success, with millions of posts within the first week. And just like that, what had started with one small sandwich had turned into something far bigger than anyone had expected. One late evening, as Lily sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the countless stories of kindness flooding in, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Elon. "Lily, the first wave of kindness has begun. This is only the start. Keep going. You're making history." Lily smiled as she typed back a simple reply. "We're just getting started." And for the first time, she truly believed it. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the world began to take notice. The Ripple of Kindness movement had exploded in a way no one could have predicted. Videos poured in from every continent. Young children helping elderly neighbors carry groceries, strangers paying for coffee, people giving away clothes to those in need. It wasn't just about grand gestures. It was about creating a culture of kindness that would reverberate through society. Lily had started to feel like a star, something she had never dreamed of. She was on the news, in interviews, even at the forefront of discussions in schools and businesses about the power of small, intentional acts. But even as the movement grew, the one thing that remained constant was her vision. It wasn't about the fame or the attention. It was about making the world feel more connected, more compassionate. Yet as the momentum of the campaign surged, something unexpected began to happen. The pressure mounted. Every day, Lily's phone buzzed with new messages from people asking for help, for funding, for guidance. Elon, ever supportive, kept pushing her forward. "This is your moment, Lily. You have the power to make a real difference," he would text her late into the night. But in the quiet moments, Lily began to feel overwhelmed. The weight of it all settled into her chest, tight and heavy. She was just a little girl, 7 years old, trying to change the world. She had always believed in the simplicity of kindness, but now, the expectations felt bigger than she had imagined. The world wasn't just watching, it was waiting. One evening, as the Foundation's office buzzed with activity, Lily sat alone in the corner, her mind swirling. Her mom was at her side, but even Carla, usually so strong, seemed preoccupied. "Elon wants us to launch a new campaign next week," Carla said softly, trying to mask her concern. "Something bigger. It's all moving so fast." Lily looked up at her mom, her eyes tired and clouded. "Mom, I don't know if I can do this anymore," she said, her voice small, vulnerable in a way Carla had never heard before. "I thought I could change the world. I thought it would be simple, but it's not. It's all so much." Carla knelt beside her daughter, brushing the hair out of her face. "Honey, you don't have to carry the weight of the world. You're doing more than most adults can ever dream of. You've already started something amazing, but you don't have to do it all yourself." Lily shook her head, tears welling up. "I started this. People are counting on me. What if I let them down?" Before Carla could answer, the door to their office opened and Elon stepped in, his face tired but determined. The same intensity that had always fueled his projects now focused on Lily. "Elon," Lily said, her voice wavering, "I don't think I can keep doing this. I thought it would be enough. But it's not. I'm just a little girl." Elon sat down beside her, his expression softening. He didn't say anything at first, just letting her words hang in the air. Then, in the quiet, steady voice she had come to trust, he spoke. "You know, Lily, when I first started with SpaceX, I had a lot of doubts. I was just a guy with a big idea, and everyone thought I was crazy. Every day, there were new problems, new challenges. And there were moments when I wanted to quit. But I kept going, not because it was easy, but because I believed in what I was doing. And I think you believe in this too." Lily looked at him, the tears still in her eyes. "But what if I'm not enough? What if it's too much?" Elon took a deep breath, his voice calm. "The world doesn't need you to be perfect, Lily. It doesn't need you to have all the answers. What the world needs is your heart, your vision. And that, my friend, is enough." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, and then added, "Kindness is the easiest thing in the world to give, but it's also the hardest thing to measure. You can't expect everything to change overnight. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. Every small act you inspire, every video that goes viral, every time someone helps another person, that's a win. And those wins add up." Lily wiped her eyes, looking up at Elon. "But I'm so scared of failing. I'm scared that this will all just disappear, that no one will care." Elon smiled gently, leaning forward. "Failure is a part of success, Lily. It's not the end, but the beginning. Every time we fail, we learn something new, something important. And the one thing I've learned in all these years is that you should never let fear stop you from doing what's right. You're not alone in this. You have all of us here, rooting for you." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. For the first time in weeks, the pressure started to ease. She wasn't alone. She didn't have to do everything by herself. There were people around her, people who believed in her and in the power of kindness. She could lean on them. She could keep moving forward, one small step at a time. And with that thought, the tears stopped. She looked up at Elon, a small, hopeful smile playing on her lips. "You're right," she said, her voice stronger now. "I can do this. I'm not going to give up." Elon smiled back, his eyes shining with pride. "I knew you would." The following day, Lily took a deep breath and stood before a room full of reporters, influencers, and volunteers, ready to launch the next phase of the Ripple of Kindness campaign. The world had been watching her closely, waiting for her to falter, to crack under the pressure. But instead, she stood tall, her resolve firm. "We are not trying to change the world in one day," Lily said, her voice steady and clear. "We are here to remind people that kindness is not something that needs to be earned. It is something that we can give freely, without expectation. It is something we can choose every day, and in doing so, we create a ripple effect that can transform lives." As she finished speaking, the crowd erupted into applause, their faces filled with admiration. But what struck Lily the most was the deep sense of peace that settled over her. This was the path she was meant to walk, and though it wouldn't always be easy, it was the path she would choose, one kind act at a time. She had started a ripple, and now it was turning into a wave. And nothing, not fear nor doubt, could stop it. The Ripple of Kindness movement continued to grow at an exponential rate, far beyond anyone's expectations. Every day brought new stories of individuals reaching out to help strangers, schools creating kindness clubs, and businesses finding ways to incorporate acts of goodwill into their daily operations. Lily's vision of a world where kindness was the default response was beginning to come true, slowly but surely. But with success came new challenges. One crisp autumn morning, Lily was sitting at her desk, working on her latest idea for the foundation's upcoming holiday campaign, when her mom burst into the room, holding her phone in her hand. Carla's face was pale, her brow furrowed in worry. "Lily, you need to see this," Carla said, holding up the phone. Lily stood up, feeling the weight of her mom's tone. She walked over to her mom, who handed her the phone. The headline on the screen read, "Ripple of Kindness. Is it just a social media trend, or is it changing the world?" Experts weigh in on the movement's impact. The article itself wasn't bad. It actually highlighted how widespread the kindness challenge had become and how it was encouraging people to connect with others in ways they hadn't before. But it was the last paragraph that made Lily's stomach turn. While the Ripple of Kindness movement has generated a lot of positive attention, some critics argue that it's little more than a feel-good trend. They question whether it can sustain itself in the long term and whether it's truly addressing the deeper issues of inequality, poverty, and systemic injustice. Lily's heart sank. The thought of critics doubting the movement had never crossed her mind. All she had ever wanted was to inspire people to do good for the sake of doing good, not for attention, not for likes, but because kindness was something the world desperately needed. The idea that people would view it as a shallow trend made her question everything. She handed the phone back to Carla, who was watching her daughter closely. "What do you think, Lily?" Carla asked gently. Lily sat back down, her eyes still glued to the screen. "I don't know, Mom," she murmured. "I didn't think about this. I thought kindness would speak for itself. But now I'm scared people will think it's just a fad. What if they stop caring?" Carla sat down beside her and placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Honey, you've already made a bigger impact than anyone could have imagined. You can't control what people think, but you can control what you do. Don't let the noise distract you from the mission. You've created something real, and real things don't fade away overnight." Lily nodded, trying to hold on to her mom's words. But deep down, she couldn't shake the fear. What if they were right? What if kindness wasn't enough? What if the world really needed something bigger than a viral movement of people giving away sandwiches and helping neighbors? That afternoon, Elon called. He had heard about the article and, knowing Lily's tendency to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders, he knew she might be struggling. "Hey, Lily," Elon said, his voice calm and steady. "I saw the article. I know what you're thinking, and I want you to know something." Lily swallowed, trying to push back the knot in her throat. "I'm scared, Elon. What if this doesn't last? What if kindness isn't enough?" Elon paused for a moment, his voice thoughtful. "Lily, kindness is never just enough. It's the starting point. but it's not a cure-all for everything that's wrong in the world. What you're doing is planting seeds. The movement you're creating is about more than just good feelings. It's about challenging people to change the way they think, to rethink how they interact with others. And that takes time. He was silent for a moment, letting the weight of his words hang in the air. Then, with a quiet chuckle, he added, "Look, I've faced my own share of critics. When I started SpaceX, everyone thought I was crazy. When I said I was going to colonize Mars, people laughed. But I kept going because I believed in the bigger picture. And if you believe in this, then you have to keep going too." Lily felt a spark of hope flicker within her. She was just a little girl, but maybe she could still change the world. "But how do I know what the bigger picture is?" Elon's voice softened. "You don't have to know all the answers, Lily. Sometimes you just have to trust the process. Trust that the people who need this will find it, even if they don't see it yet. Trust that kindness is the spark that can lead to real change, whether people believe it right now or not." The conversation ended with a sense of renewed purpose, but Lily still felt unsettled. The pressure of living up to the movement's potential was weighing on her, and now, the seeds of doubt had been planted. She knew she couldn't stop, but how could she prove to the world that kindness wasn't just a trend? Later that week, Lily and her mom were invited to speak at a charity event hosted by a major tech company. The event was designed to bring together leaders in the philanthropic world, business moguls, and social media influencers to discuss how they could create lasting change in the world. When they arrived at the event, the energy in the room was electric. But as Lily walked across the stage to give her speech, the weight of the question hanging in her mind returned. What if kindness is just a passing thing? What if it fades away like the next viral hashtag? The crowd quieted as she took the microphone. For a moment, she was lost in the sea of faces staring back at her. She could feel the eyes of the influencers and business magnates, people whose work had changed the world in their own ways, focused on her. Would they see her as just another kid with an idea that couldn't go the distance? Lily took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the mic. And then, without thinking about it too much, she spoke from the heart. "You know, I started this movement because I believe in something simple," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I believe that if we all do small things, help each other, be kind to strangers, share love instead of hate, the world can become a better place. But I know that kindness can't solve every problem. It's not a fix-all. It's not a cure. But I also know this. Without kindness, we have nothing. And if we keep spreading it, no matter how big or small, the world will change, piece by piece." She paused, feeling the weight of her own words. "I can't promise that kindness will change everything, but I can promise that if we stop, then nothing will change at all." The room went silent. For a moment, Lily felt her heart racing, unsure of how the audience would react. But then something amazing happened. A slow clap began from the back of the room, and within seconds, the entire audience was applauding. Lily smiled, her heart swelling. Maybe the critics were right that kindness couldn't solve every issue. But they were wrong if they thought it didn't matter. In that moment, she realized something crucial. Kindness wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. It was the spark that could light 1,000 fires. And she wasn't giving up now. The ripple of kindness movement was more than just a trend now. It was a force. Everywhere Lily went, she felt the excitement in the air. The buzz of people who had latched onto the idea that kindness could change the world. Stories flooded in from across the globe. People handing out sandwiches at subway stations, strangers paying for each other's groceries, even companies incorporating kindness initiatives into their business models. But despite the overwhelming positivity, Lily was beginning to sense something darker, something that was starting to pull at the edges of her dream. It happened during one of the foundation's quarterly meetings. The office was abuzz with the usual enthusiasm, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She sat in a chair near the window, watching the sky turn a deep shade of blue, the soft hum of conversations around her almost like white noise. Carla came over, her face tight with concern. "Lily, we need to talk." Lily turned to her mom, who had always been her rock, her steady presence in all the chaos. "What's wrong?" Carla hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure no one could overhear. I've been getting some strange messages, emails, and they're not from fans or followers. They're from people who don't seem to want kindness to spread. Lily felt her stomach churn. What do you mean? They're from individuals questioning what we're doing. More than that, they're threatening the foundation. They say that kindness is naive, that it's just a distraction from the real issues. Some of them even say that if we keep pushing this message, we'll lose everything we've worked for. Lily's heart sank. She had heard whispers of people challenging the movement, but this felt different. These weren't just criticisms, they were attacks. Are you saying people want to stop us? Lily's voice trembled. Carla knelt beside her daughter, taking her hand. I'm not sure what this is, but there are forces out there, Lily, that don't want change. They don't want the world to become a better place. They thrive on division, fear, and hate. And right now, kindness is a threat to that. Lily felt a surge of confusion and fear. She had never imagined that her dream could become something so dangerous, something so threatening. What had started with one simple sandwich, a small, innocent gesture, had now morphed into something bigger than she had ever anticipated. Later that night, when the house had quieted and only the soft sound of the wind outside filled the room, Lily couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing, her thoughts spiraling. The criticism, the threats, it was all becoming too much. She had wanted to make the world better, but what if the world wasn't ready? What if people didn't want to be kind? She closed her eyes and tried to picture everything. The faces of the people who had shared their acts of kindness online, the children who had written to her about how much the movement had meant to them. But the darker messages still lingered in her mind. People saying that kindness was a waste of time, that the world needed tougher solutions, not a feel-good movement. In the quiet of the night, Lily whispered to herself, what if they're right? What if this is all just a dream? The next morning, Elon called. Hey, Lily, he said, his voice steady and calm, as always. I hear things have been tough. Lily sat up in bed, her heart heavy. Yeah, things are getting harder. Some people are saying kindness isn't enough. They're saying I'm just making people feel good, but not actually solving anything real. Elon was silent for a moment. She could hear the rustling of papers or something faint in the background, but his tone was never anything but unwavering. I've been there. Believe me, I've heard those same voices telling me that SpaceX is a pipe dream, that electric cars are just a fad. But you know what? They were wrong. And I'm willing to bet they're wrong about this too. Lily swallowed, trying to absorb his words. But what if they're right this time? What if people really don't care? Elon's voice softened. Lily, this is the thing. You're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether people will care. It's whether you will keep going, whether you believe that kindness is worth fighting for. Because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter how many people criticize, how many people doubt. What matters is that you stay true to your vision. And if you believe in kindness, really believe in it, then nothing anyone says can stop you. You're not just planting a movement, you're planting a new way of thinking. And that takes time. It's never going to be easy. But the world has always needed people who aren't afraid to challenge the way things are. Lily listened, her heart beginning to calm with each word. But what about the people who want to stop us? She asked quietly. Elon chuckled softly, as if he had been expecting the question. Those people? They're scared. Scared because they know kindness has the power to change things they don't want to change. People who thrive on fear, on anger. They don't want the world to be different. They want it to stay the same. But kindness? Kindness doesn't care about their agendas. It doesn't even need permission to exist. All it needs is people willing to give it. Lily felt a sense of resolve building in her. The fear and doubt hadn't vanished, but now they seemed smaller, less intimidating. If Elon could keep going despite all the naysayers, why couldn't she? Thanks, Elon, Lily said, her voice quieter now but stronger. I needed to hear that. Anytime, Elon replied, his tone light but sincere. You've got this. Just keep going. And remember, the best things are always the hardest to do. The next day, Lily stood before a crowd of thousands at a charity gala, a large stage set up with a banner that read, The Ripple of Kindness. How small actions change the world. Her heart was pounding in her chest. This was one of the largest crowds she'd ever spoken to, and the pressure of the past week hung heavy on her shoulders. But as she walked to the podium, something shifted inside her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about living out what she believed. Lily stepped up to the microphone, her palms slightly sweaty, but her resolve firm. She took a deep breath and began to speak. You know, when I started this journey, I never expected things to get so big. And I certainly didn't expect to face so many challenges along the way. There are days when it feels like the world doesn't want to hear the message of kindness, when it feels like it's just too hard to keep going. But then I remember something. She paused, looking out over the crowd, their faces waiting for her words. I remember that kindness doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need to be popular or trendy. It doesn't need to be big or flashy. All it needs is people willing to choose it, every day, no matter how hard things get. The crowd was silent. Lily felt the weight of their attention, but she didn't falter. And that's the kind of world I want to live in. A world where kindness is the first thing we choose, even when the world tells us to do otherwise. And I'm not giving up on that world. Not now. Not ever. As she finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. But this time, it wasn't just a polite response. It was genuine. The people in the room, the people who had once questioned the movement, were starting to see it in a new light. They were starting to understand. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt certain. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it didn't matter. She had a mission, and she wasn't going to let anything, stop her from completing it. The weeks following Lily's speech at the charity gala were a whirlwind of new opportunities, media appearances, and partnerships. People were starting to take the ripple of kindness movement more seriously. Corporations were reaching out to sponsor events, schools were launching their own kindness initiatives, and even some politicians had begun to speak out in support of her cause. But despite the momentum, the shadow of doubt still lingered, especially as the threats continued. Lily and her mom had spent hours discussing the increasing number of hostile emails, online messages, and even anonymous phone calls. It wasn't just people criticizing her ideas. It was people actively trying to tear the movement down. Lily would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, wondering if it was all worth it. Were these moments of kindness enough to push through the ever-growing tension? Or would the world ultimately fall back into the old habits of greed, fear, and indifference? One day, just as Lily was beginning to wonder if she could keep going, a message came through on the Ripple of Kindness Foundation's social media account. It was simple, a short video, uploaded anonymously. The thumbnail was a blurred image, but the message attached to it was clear. You don't know me, but I know you. Keep going, Lily. This is bigger than you think. The video itself was just a minute long, and it showed nothing more than a crowded street in the middle of the day. A man stood in the background, obscured by the crowd, his voice barely audible. You may not see it, he said softly, but there are more of us than you think, and we believe in what you're doing. Stay strong. Lily watched the video over and over again. Who was this person? And why would they send this cryptic message now, of all times? Carla noticed her daughter's growing confusion and anxiety. What's wrong, honey? Lily turned to her mom, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I don't understand, Mom. Who sent this? Why now? Carla placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. It's a sign, Lily. People are watching, and they're not all against you. This is bigger than just one person, one movement. There are others who believe in what you're doing, even if you don't see them yet. As days passed, the anonymous messages didn't stop. Another video appeared, this time from a different location, an office building with a view of the city. The same voice, the same message. The world is changing, one small act at a time. You've already sparked something. Don't let fear make you stop. Lily was both comforted and unsettled by the messages. Who were these people? They spoke like they had knowledge of something Lily hadn't yet grasped. Each message felt like a lifeline, yet each message also reminded her of the enormity of the challenge she faced. Her days became a blur of meetings, charity events, and interviews, but the anonymous messages kept coming. Each one reinforced the belief that maybe she wasn't fighting this battle alone, that maybe, just maybe, a movement of kindness had already begun to take root in places she couldn't see. and those who were a part of it were silently cheering her on. It was one late afternoon when Lily and Carla were having dinner that they received another message. This time, however, it was different. There was no video, no cryptic backdrop, just a text message sent directly to the Ripple of Kindness Foundation's phone. "You are not alone. I've been watching. You've inspired me to take action, and I'll meet you soon. E." Lily read the message 3 times, her heart beating faster with each glance. E? Who could that be? Without hesitation, Lily typed a reply. "I don't understand. Who are you?" The message came back quickly. "You'll know when the time is right. For now, just keep going. Trust that others are working behind the scenes to help. This will be bigger than you ever imagined." Lily set the phone down, feeling both unnerved and strangely hopeful. She had always known there was something bigger at play, something beyond the small gestures of kindness. She could feel it deep within her, like a spark waiting to ignite a fire. But the question was, what exactly was that something? The next day, as Lily was preparing for another event, Carla sat her down at the kitchen table. "Lily," she said, her voice serious, "I've been thinking. The messages, the videos, they're not just random. I believe they're from someone who's been watching everything you're doing. And I think it's time to find out who they are." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "But how? They haven't given us anything concrete. Just these cryptic notes and videos." Carla nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We need to figure out who they are before we can decide what to do next. If they're on our side, we might need their help more than we realize. They might have resources, connections, or knowledge that could take the movement to the next level. But we can't do anything without knowing who's behind all this." Lily agreed, her mind racing with possibilities. Who could it be? Someone with power? A corporation? A group of activists? That night, as Lily was lying in bed, her phone buzzed again. Another text. "The time is now. Look to the sky." Lily's stomach dropped. What did that mean? The sky? For a brief moment, she thought about the message from Elon, about the importance of believing in the bigger picture. Maybe this was it, the moment when everything clicked into place. Maybe the movement had already grown beyond her capacity to manage, and there were others now who were stepping in to help. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was coming, something unexpected. The next day, as Lily and Carla stood on the balcony of their apartment, looking out over the city, they saw it. A massive billboard, towering over the skyline. The bright lights and bold letters could not be ignored. "Kindness can change the world. Join us. Ripple of Kindness." It was the largest advertisement Lily had ever seen. The message was unmistakable. Ripple of Kindness was no longer just a grassroots initiative. It was a global movement. But who had put the billboard up? Who had the resources to make this happen? As Lily stared at the advertisement, the answer seemed to materialize, as if it had been right in front of her all along. There was one person, one entity, who had the means, the reach, and the vision to support such a monumental shift. And she finally understood who he was. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Lily stood frozen, her eyes locked on the massive billboard that now dominated the skyline. It wasn't just an advertisement. It was a statement, a declaration that her movement had grown far beyond her wildest expectations. The message was clear. The ripple of kindness was here to stay, and it wasn't going anywhere. But there was still one question that haunted her mind. Who put it up? She turned to Carla, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think?" Carla looked at the billboard, her face unreadable. "I think you've been right all along, Lily. This is bigger than just you or me. Someone is out there, working in the shadows, and they believe in what you're doing." Lily could hardly wrap her mind around the enormity of it all. Just weeks ago, she was handing out sandwiches to strangers and worrying about whether anyone would listen. Now, a global movement was being born, one that was somehow larger than her own efforts. She had become the face of something monumental, but who were the people working behind the scenes? And why were they so determined to remain anonymous? The following week, Lily's inbox was flooded with media requests, inquiries from companies, and messages from people praising her for what she had started. But among the sea of congratulations, one email stood out. It was brief, with no subject line, but the content sent a chill down her spine. "You're ready now. Meet me at the pier at midnight. Alone. E." It was the third message from E that had come directly to Lily's email, and the tone was different this time. Direct, urgent. Her heart began to race. Was this a trap? Should she even go? She turned to Carla, who was sitting at the kitchen table, reading through a report. "Mom, I just got another message from E." Carla set down the paper and looked up. "What does it say?" Lily showed her the email. Carla's face grew serious, her eyes narrowing as she read the cryptic words. "Lily, you can't go alone," Carla said firmly. "We don't know who this is. It could be someone with good intentions, or it could be someone trying to manipulate you. You're too important now. This isn't just about sandwiches and kindness anymore. It's a movement." But Lily felt something stir deep within her, a sense that this was the moment she had been waiting for. This wasn't just another step forward. It was a leap into something unknown, something she couldn't quite grasp yet. There was a part of her, a deep instinct, that told her that whoever E was, they were somehow connected to everything she had been through, everything she had built. "I have to go," Lily said softly. "This might be the answer we've been waiting for." Carla sighed, her face softening. "If you go, I'm going with you." Lily shook her head, smiling gently. "Mom, I need to do this on my own. I know it's scary, but this is something I have to figure out for myself." Reluctantly, Carla nodded. "Just promise me you'll be careful." That night, as the clock struck midnight, Lily made her way to the pier. The city lights shimmered across the water, casting an ethereal glow on the rippling surface. It was eerily quiet, save for the distant sound of seagulls and the occasional whisper of the wind. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure what she was walking into, but she knew that this was the moment that could change everything. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the wood of the pier, and she tried to steady her breath, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. And then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged. It was a man, tall and cloaked in a dark coat that seemed to blend into the night. His face was partially obscured by the collar, but Lily could make out his sharp jawline and the intensity in his eyes. She stepped forward, unsure of what to say. "I'm here," she said, her voice steady, though her pulse raced. "Who are you?" The man studied her for a moment, then stepped closer. His voice was deep, almost too quiet to hear over the sound of the waves. "I'm someone who has been watching you, Lily, watching your movement grow, watching the way you've changed the lives of so many. And I'm here to tell you something important." Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady the nervous excitement in her chest. "Who are you?" she repeated. "And why are you doing this?" The man finally pulled down the collar of his coat, revealing his face fully. Lily's eyes widened in shock. It was Elon Musk. Lily couldn't believe it. Elon Musk, the very person who had encouraged her when she was at her lowest, the person who had been quietly cheering her on from the sidelines, was standing in front of her, as though he had stepped out of a dream. Lily started, her voice shaking. "You're E?" Elon gave a small nod. "Yes. I've been watching everything you've done, everything this movement has become, and I have to say, I'm impressed." Lily felt a mix of awe and confusion. "Why didn't you reveal yourself earlier? Why all the secrecy?" He shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "The world wasn't ready. I knew that if I revealed myself too soon, it could derail everything. People would think it was just another publicity stunt, just another billionaire throwing his weight around. But this movement, your movement, isn't about me. It's about you, about the people, about kindness." Lily processed his words, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions and information flooding her mind. "So why now? Why are you here?" Elon's gaze softened, and he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because I believe that you're on the cusp of something extraordinary, and I want to help you take it to the next level. But you're going to need resources, connections, and support. I can provide all of that, but only if you're ready to truly change the world." Lily felt the weight of his words sink in. This wasn't just an offer of financial support. This was an opportunity to scale the movement beyond anything she had ever imagined. But at what cost? Why me? She asked. Why did you choose me for this? Elon smiled slightly, his eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity. Because you believed in something most people would have dismissed as impossible. Kindness. And because of that, you've already proven that you're the one who can lead the charge. You're the person who can make this work. I'm just here to help you make it happen. Lily stood in stunned silence. For the first time, she realized the full scope of what had happened. It wasn't just about a movement anymore. It was about a revolution in how people saw each other, how they treated each other. And she had become the spark. But now, with Elon Musk behind her, the possibilities were endless. Are you ready? He asked. Lily took a deep breath, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and hope. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment everything changed. Yes, she said, her voice steady and full of resolve. I'm ready. The next morning, after their midnight meeting, Lily could hardly believe what had just happened. She had spent the rest of the night replaying every moment of her encounter with Elon Musk, trying to make sense of the magnitude of his offer. The reality that the man who had revolutionized space travel and electric cars was now supporting her small but rapidly growing movement was overwhelming. As soon as Lily got home, she sat down with Carla and recounted everything. Every word, every gesture, every promise Elon had made. Her mother listened intently, her face a mix of concern and awe. Carla had always been the voice of reason, the one who kept Lily grounded, but even she couldn't deny the incredible opportunity now before them. You're saying he wants to help us on a global scale? Carla asked, still processing the news. Lily nodded. He said I've proven I can lead, but I'll need more than just my social media presence and volunteers. He wants to provide resources, help with logistics, and bring in his network of innovators and philanthropists. Carla let out a low whistle. This is huge, Lily, but you need to be careful. With power like that, there's always a price. Lily's heart sank slightly. She had considered that. The idea of having a billionaire backing her, someone with far-reaching influence, felt like both a blessing and a potential burden. What would he want in return? Would his involvement come with strings attached that could undermine the integrity of her cause? I've thought about it, Mom, Lily said, her voice steady. I'll be careful, but if this is the way forward, we can't ignore it. The world needs a movement like this, and if Elon truly believes in it, we have to trust him. We can't let fear hold us back. Carla studied her daughter for a moment, her eyes filled with love and concern. I know you'll do what's best, but remember, stay true to what you started. Don't let anyone take that from you. Lily smiled softly, grateful for her mother's support. I promise. Over the next few days, Lily and Elon continued their discussions. He introduced her to a team of advisors, lawyers, marketers, strategists, and even tech developers who would help expand the ripple of kindness. They began drafting a plan to take the movement global, organizing large-scale events, creating a mobile app that tracked acts of kindness, and building partnerships with corporations, schools, and NGOs. But even as they mapped out the future, Lily felt a growing unease. She had always believed in the power of individual acts of kindness, the little things people did for each other that didn't require fame, wealth, or recognition. Was it possible to keep that spirit alive while scaling the movement to an international stage? Could she still hold onto the core values of humility and sincerity as the world's eyes turned toward her? Elon seemed to sense her hesitation. One afternoon, he called her up for a meeting at his private office. Lily, he began, leaning back in his chair, his expression serious. I know this is all happening fast, and I can see the weight of it on you. But I want you to understand something. You're not in this alone. You have the entire world watching, yes, but you also have a community of people who are ready to make a real change. This isn't just about you. It's about everyone who believes that kindness can be the foundation of a better world. Lily nodded, her mind still swirling. I get that, Elon, but I'm scared. Scared that we'll lose the essence of what this movement stands for. What if it becomes just another trend or corporate gimmick? What if people forget the heart of it? Elon leaned forward, his eyes soft but intense. That's where you come in. You're the face of this movement. You're the one who has the authenticity and the heart to make sure it stays true. I'm here to help you scale it, yes, but only you can keep it grounded in what matters. Lily took a deep breath, feeling a little lighter. Elon's words had a way of cutting through her doubts, reminding her of why she started this in the first place. "I won't forget," she said, more resolute than ever. "I'll make sure we stay true to our mission." As the months went by, the ripple of kindness began to grow at an unprecedented rate. What had started as a local initiative in their community had quickly blossomed into a global movement. Social media campaigns went viral, celebrities joined the cause, and people from all over the world began sharing their acts of kindness, no matter how small, using the hashtag ripple of kindness. The mobile app Elon's team helped develop allowed people to log their acts of kindness, and each logged act earned points that contributed to real-world rewards like donations to charity, free resources for schools, or even funding for small businesses in need. At the same time, partnerships with major corporations began rolling in. Companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and various other tech giants expressed their support for the initiative, with many pledging to integrate kindness into their corporate cultures. The initiative started being featured in the media, and Lily found herself doing interviews almost every day, traveling to conferences and speaking at events. She was being recognized as one of the most influential young leaders of the decade. However, with this rapid success came new challenges. Lily felt herself constantly under pressure, balancing the growth of the movement with staying true to the original vision. She spent long hours on calls with Elon and his team, reviewing the strategic plans and assessing partnerships. Every decision felt monumental. But despite the stress, she remained deeply connected to the cause. She made it a point to visit local communities, attend events, and continue interacting with the people who had supported her from the beginning. One evening, as Lily sat in her hotel room after a particularly exhausting day of meetings, she received a message from Elon. It was simple, yet it made her heart swell with gratitude. "You've done it, Lily. You've changed the world. I couldn't be prouder of you." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the message, overwhelmed by the sense of accomplishment that seemed to sweep over her. She had truly created something that was bigger than herself, a global movement that was changing lives, one act of kindness at a time. But as she sat back, reflecting on everything she had accomplished, she couldn't help but remember the simple act that had started it all, giving a sandwich to a stranger. It had all come down to that moment. That small, simple decision to be kind when it wasn't expected, when it wasn't easy. And now, she was here, on the brink of something extraordinary. Lily smiled softly to herself. This was just the beginning. As the ripple of kindness movement surged forward, the pressure on Lily only grew. What had once been a simple idea to bring people together through small acts of kindness was now a global phenomenon. And with that fame came a multitude of complications. The media no longer saw Lily as just a teenager with a big heart. They saw her as a brand. Interviews and press appearances became a daily routine. She found herself being asked not just about kindness, but about profits, partnerships, and the sustainability of the movement. Investors, publicists, and corporate sponsors all wanted a piece of the action. Even celebrities began to reach out, eager to attach their names to the cause. And then, there were the critics. At first, the backlash had been subtle. Articles questioning the movement's true intentions appeared in obscure blogs, and some social media accounts began to claim that Ripple of Kindness was just another feel-good gimmick. But as the movement grew, so did the vitriol. Soon, the criticisms became impossible to ignore. Is kindness just a business? Has Lily's movement been co-opted by corporations? Is she really changing lives, or just building an empire? The criticisms began to seep into the mainstream media. News outlets that had once praised Lily's work began to run feature pieces with headlines like, "Is the Ripple of Kindness becoming a commercialized scheme?" Or, "The dark side of the kindness movement. Is it all just a marketing ploy?" Lily tried to ignore the noise at first. She focused on the positive messages, on the children who were creating kindness projects in their schools, on the volunteers who worked tirelessly to distribute food, on the millions of small, heartwarming stories that made the movement real. But the more the critics spoke, the more she couldn't shake the doubt creeping into her mind. She began to wonder if maybe they were right. Was she compromising her own vision in pursuit of something bigger? Was kindness really just a brand, now, something to be monetized and sold. Every day, she was inundated with requests to launch new products, enter new markets, or negotiate new sponsorship deals. One night, after a particularly exhausting round of negotiations with a major corporation, Lily sat down with Carla in their living room. Carla had always been her anchor, her sounding board when things got too overwhelming. "Mom, I don't know what to do anymore," Lily confessed, her voice cracking. "It's like everything has become about money, about deals, and about what's marketable. I wanted this to be about real change, about people helping people, not about turning kindness into a commodity." Carla, who had been quietly listening, placed a hand on Lily's. "You've always been an idealist, Lily. You believed in the power of kindness when no one else did. And it's still about that. Don't let the noise make you forget why you started." Lily wiped away a tear, frustrated. "But how can I not? It's everywhere. All these companies, all these people saying we need to scale, need to make more money. It's like the kindness is getting lost in the process." Carla thought for a moment before speaking again. "You can't change the world without facing these challenges. You're not just fighting for kindness, you're fighting for its place in the world. People like to undermine things they don't understand, or things they feel threatened by. But you have to keep the faith. Your heart will show you the way." Lily took a deep breath, trying to center herself. She knew her mom was right, but the weight of the movement was becoming more difficult to bear. Every decision seemed to come with a price. The next morning, Lily received a call that would change everything. It was from Elon Musk, and his voice was unusually urgent. "Lily, I need to talk to you about something important. There are some new developments in the business side of Ripple of Kindness, and I think you need to know what's going on." Lily's stomach dropped. She had seen the media coverage, and she knew things were getting heated. "What's happening?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been talking with the corporate sponsors, and some of them want us to take a more aggressive stance with the branding," Elon explained. "They want Ripple of Kindness to expand its influence, to become a full-fledged consumer brand. They're pushing for more visibility, more products, and more partnerships with big-name corporations." Lily could feel the familiar knot tightening in her chest. "And what do you think about that?" Elon's voice softened. "I think we need to be careful. There's a fine line between expansion and exploitation. If we push too hard, too fast, we risk losing the heart of what we're doing. But at the same time, we can't ignore the potential for real change. I want to help you navigate this, but you need to make the call." Lily was quiet for a moment, reflecting on what Elon had said. It felt like a crossroads, like the moment when everything could either fall into place or unravel. She knew the movement was too important to let slip away, but at what cost? Was it worth sacrificing the purity of the cause for the sake of growth? "Give me some time to think," she said finally. "I need to figure this out on my own." Over the next few days, Lily withdrew from the public eye. She spent time talking with trusted friends and family, revisiting her early days of creating the Ripple of Kindness. She remembered the joy she felt when she gave that sandwich to Elon Musk, the thrill of seeing people help each other, and the feeling of truly making a difference, without expectations, without an agenda. The pressure was mounting. The corporate deals kept coming, each one promising to propel the movement forward, but each one also threatening to strip away what made it so special in the first place. Every phone call, every meeting, felt like a tug-of-war between the potential for real change and the fear of losing her way. One evening, while sitting alone in the quiet of her room, Lily made a decision. The next day, she gathered her team, Elon, Carla, and a few key advisors, in a conference room. Everyone was eager to hear her thoughts on the direction of the movement, but Lily wasn't ready to follow the path they had been discussing. "I've thought long and hard about all of this," she began, her voice calm but resolute. "I know the world is ready for change, and I know we have the power to make it happen. But I can't let Ripple of Kindness become just another business. It's not about products. It's not about partnerships. It's about people, real people, helping each other. We can scale this, yes, but we have to do it on our terms, with integrity." Elon, who had always supported her vision, nodded thoughtfully. "I get it. You don't want to sell out, and I respect that. But this is going to be hard. The pressure is going to keep coming." Lily looked around the room, her heart steady. "I'm ready. I know what we're up against, but I'm not going to sacrifice the heart of this movement. I'll take the risks, but only if we stay true to what matters." Her team agreed, and from that moment on, the direction of Ripple of Kindness was clear. They would continue to grow, continue to reach more people, but they would never compromise their message. It would always be about kindness. The kind of kindness that had no strings attached, no profit motive, just people helping each other. Lily had made her choice. Now, it was time to fight for it. As weeks passed, the tension surrounding the Ripple of Kindness movement only intensified. Lily's decision to keep the movement pure, to avoid turning it into a corporate juggernaut, sent shockwaves through the business world. Some of the corporate sponsors, disappointed by the direction, began pulling their support. Media coverage grew increasingly critical, questioning whether Lily was making a monumental mistake by rejecting the offers of growth and capital that so many organizations would kill for. Does she not realize the impact she could have if she takes the money? One financial analyst said in an interview. She could change the world, really change it, but she's choosing to remain a small-time operation. It's baffling. Every day, it felt like Lily was fighting a battle on multiple fronts. Corporate giants were no longer offering support. Instead, they were launching counter-campaigns to discredit her. Some took to social media, using their platforms to question her credibility. Others offered competing kindness initiatives that seemed eerily similar to hers, but with the backing of multi-billion-dollar companies. Lily's heart sank as she read the headlines each day. The Ripple of Kindness. Is it just a PR stunt? Teen prodigy rejects massive deals, but at what cost? It was becoming harder to ignore the growing pressure. It felt like the world was closing in on her, and despite the overwhelming support from regular people, those who still believed in the movement, the noise from the critics was deafening. One evening, after yet another brutal day of emails, phone calls, and negative press, Lily found herself walking aimlessly through the city streets, trying to clear her head. The city had been bustling with life, yet she felt a profound sense of isolation. She was starting to wonder if she had made the right choice. Was it worth fighting for purity in an industry where the rules were dictated by power, money, and influence? Was she being naive, believing that kindness could remain untouched by the corporate world? How could she change the world when it felt like the world was trying to change her? She ended up at a small park near her apartment, the place where it all began. The same park where she'd met Elon Musk, where the idea for the movement had first sparked. She sat on a bench, staring out at the stars, and felt something shift inside her. It wasn't clarity exactly, but it was a feeling, a recognition of her own strength. It was a reminder of the moment when she first started this journey, when she chose to take a risk, to step into the unknown. At that moment, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Elon. "Lily, I know it feels like everything is falling apart right now, but I want you to remember something. Change takes time. You can't rush it, and you can't make everyone happy. But if you stay true to yourself, the world will catch up. People don't always see it right away, but they will. Trust the process. I believe in you." Lily stared at the message for a long moment. She could feel the weight of his words settle into her chest. It wasn't the solution she was looking for, but it was the encouragement she needed. Trust the process. She had to trust that the right people, the ones who truly believed in the movement, would continue to support her. She couldn't let herself be consumed by the noise. If she was meant to make a difference, she had to stay committed to her path, even if it meant walking it alone. The next day, Lily called an emergency meeting with her core team. She had made up her mind. "I've been thinking a lot," she began, standing at the head of the table, "and I've realized something. We've been fighting for the wrong things. We've been fighting to prove ourselves to the world, instead of focusing on why we started this in the first place." Her team looked at her, puzzled. From the start, Ripple of Kindness was never about fame or money. It wasn't about building a global empire. It was about changing hearts. It was about showing people that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple out and change the world. She paused, letting her words settle in. "We're not here to compete with corporations. We're here to lead by example. If we lose sight of that, we lose everything." The room was silent for a moment. Then Elon spoke up, his voice steady and calm. "You're right, Lily. I've been so focused on scaling and expanding the brand that I forgot the essence of what we're really doing. We've created something much bigger than just a campaign. It's a movement. And a movement isn't about profits. It's about people. We need to take a step back and reevaluate how we're doing things. Lily smiled, her heart lighter now that she had voiced her thoughts. I'm glad you understand. But here's the thing. We don't need to be everywhere. We don't need to be in every store, every school, every company. We need to be where it matters most, connecting with people, one act of kindness at a time. Her team nodded in agreement. They could feel the shift in the air. It was like a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. We'll keep the movement authentic, Lily continued. We'll focus on what makes us special, the stories, the real acts of kindness. And we'll stay true to the message, no matter what the critics say. Elon leaned forward, a glint of admiration in his eyes. You've got it, Lily. Let's do this the right way. We'll find ways to fund it, without compromising the integrity of what we've built. We can partner with the right organizations, but we'll remain in control of our mission. And with that, the team redoubled their commitment to the movement. They decided to stop chasing sponsors who didn't align with their values, and instead focused on grassroots fundraising and partnerships with like-minded organizations. They would continue to grow, but not at the expense of their integrity. As the weeks went by, the decision to scale back had an unexpected effect. Instead of a decline in support, the ripple of kindness gained a new kind of momentum. People from all walks of life, inspired by the authenticity of the movement, started organizing local events and fundraising efforts on their own. Schools and communities began adopting kindness programs, and there was a renewed sense of purpose and unity among the volunteers. Elon, too, supported the new direction, offering his resources in ways that didn't undermine the core values of the movement. Together, they created a sustainable model that balanced growth with the genuine mission of spreading kindness. One day, as Lily was walking through a local park, she stopped to watch a group of children handing out food and supplies to the homeless. The scene was nothing short of beautiful. Small, everyday people doing something extraordinary simply because it felt right. At that moment, she realized that she had made the right choice. She didn't need the whole world to understand her vision. She just needed to stay true to herself, and the world would catch up in its own time. The storm had passed, and now it was time for the calm. The months following the shift in direction were not easy, but they were rewarding. Lily had made the difficult decision to reject the pressure of mass commercialization, and though it had felt like walking a tightrope, the results began to speak for themselves. The ripple of kindness movement was slowly gaining traction, not through flashy marketing or corporate sponsorships, but through genuine acts of love and connection. It was the kind of grassroots growth that couldn't be bought, only earned. However, just as Lily thought the storm had passed, something unexpected happened. A new kind of challenge arose that would shake her faith in the movement and her ability to lead it. One afternoon, while in a meeting with her team, Lily received a call from Carla. Her mother's voice was frantic, unlike anything Lily had heard before. "Lily, something's happened. It's your father," Carla said, breathless. "He's in the hospital. He's had a heart attack. They don't know what's going to happen." Lily's heart stopped. Everything around her seemed to go quiet as the weight of the news hit her like a brick wall. Her mind raced, but it felt like time had frozen. Her father, the one person who had been there for her through everything, the one person who always believed in her, was fighting for his life. "I'm on my way, Mom," Lily whispered, already standing up from the table. She didn't even know if the words made sense. It didn't matter. Her mind was consumed with worry, with the need to get to her father. The hospital room was cold and sterile, filled with the beeping sounds of machines and the quiet murmur of medical staff. Lily rushed in, her heart pounding, and Carla was sitting at her father's bedside, holding his hand, tears streaking down her face. "Mom," Lily said, her voice trembling. "What happened? How is he?" Carla looked up, eyes red-rimmed but still filled with strength. "He's stable for now, but they're not sure how bad the damage is. They're saying it could be a long recovery. We just have to wait and see." Lily's father, John, was unconscious, hooked up to tubes and machines that kept him alive. His face was pale, and his chest barely rose with each shallow breath. It was hard to reconcile this image of him with the vibrant, larger-than-life man who had always been there for her, supporting her dreams, guiding her when things got tough. This man, who had worked tirelessly his entire life, was now lying in a hospital bed, fighting for every breath. Lily couldn't contain the tears anymore. She sat by his side, holding his hand, praying silently that he would pull through. She felt helpless, so small in the face of the fragility of life. How could she lead a movement that was supposed to make the world better if she couldn't even save the person she loved most? Days passed, and the situation remained uncertain. Lily stayed by her father's side, barely sleeping, barely eating, focused only on the flickering hope that he would recover. But with every passing day, the uncertainty weighed heavier. The doctors said they needed time to determine the extent of the damage, and that his recovery, if he even made one, would be a long and grueling road. During this time, the world outside didn't stop. Ripple of Kindness continued to grow, and Lily's team kept her updated on the movement's progress. But the emails, the calls, the news stories, none of it mattered. All Lily could think about was her father, and the intense fear that this might be the end of everything she had known. One evening, while sitting alone in the waiting area, exhausted and drained, Lily's phone buzzed. It was a text from Elon. "Lily, I know this is a tough time for you, and I want you to know that I'm here for you. But I also want to remind you of something you told me when we first started this. Kindness isn't just a movement, it's a lifeline. It's a way to heal, to rebuild, and to bring hope. You've shown the world what's possible. But now, in this moment, you need to lean on that same strength. We're all here, rooting for you, and we believe in you." His words hit her hard. She had started this movement with a simple act of kindness. She had always said that kindness could heal the world, but now she realized it had the power to heal individuals, too. Kindness could heal her. Lily wiped away the tears that had been streaming down her face. She was exhausted, physically and emotionally. But as she read Elon's message over and over again, something inside her clicked. She needed to be strong, not just for her father, but for herself and for the millions of people who were counting on her to lead the Ripple of Kindness movement. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Lily made the difficult decision to return to work. Her father's condition was still critical, but she couldn't let the movement fall apart. It was bigger than just her. It was a beacon of hope for so many people. If she didn't show up now, if she didn't push forward, everything she had worked for would crumble. When she entered her office, she was greeted by a wave of support from her team. They had all been waiting for her return, unsure of how to proceed without her leadership. But seeing her there, though exhausted and still visibly shaken, gave them the strength they needed. "I'm back," Lily said quietly, her voice hoarse. "And we're going to keep going. Not because we have to, but because we can. This movement isn't just about kindness, it's about resilience. It's about showing the world that even in our darkest times, we can rise." The room erupted into applause, and for the first time in days, Lily felt a spark of hope ignite within her. She wasn't alone. She had her team, her family, and the millions of people who had supported Ripple of Kindness from the beginning. As the days turned into weeks, Lily continued to balance her father's recovery with her work. Her father slowly began to show signs of improvement, but it would take months before he would be fully healed. And during this time, Lily kept pushing forward. She launched new initiatives for the movement, creating spaces for people to connect and support each other in real, tangible ways. And then, just when she thought the world might finally be catching up, something extraordinary happened. The Ripple of Kindness movement reached a new milestone, a moment that would define its place in history. People everywhere began sharing their stories of kindness. Stories of families reuniting, communities rebuilding, and individuals overcoming adversity. The world began to listen. It began to understand. Lily knew, in that moment, that everything she had fought for was worth it. The struggle, the pain, the doubts, it had all led to this. The movement was no longer just hers. It had become something universal, something the world could embrace. And in the most unexpected of ways, her father, stronger now, back on his feet, became a symbol of the movement's power. His recovery was a testament to the strength of love, support, and kindness. Lily had always believed that kindness could change the world, But now she realized that kindness could change lives, starting with her own. It had been a year since the fateful hospital visit that almost shattered Lily's world. In the time since, the ripple of kindness movement had grown into something far beyond what she had ever imagined. What started as a small act of generosity, Lily giving a sandwich to Elon Musk, had blossomed into a global phenomenon. But it wasn't just the scale that had amazed her, it was the impact. Lily stood on a stage in a large auditorium, surrounded by hundreds of young leaders and activists who had gathered for the Ripple of Kindness Global Summit. She looked out over the crowd, feeling a sense of pride and wonder that was almost overwhelming. These were the people who had taken her simple idea and turned it into something that was changing the world. This was no longer just her movement. It belonged to everyone who believed in the power of kindness. The day had been full of workshops, presentations, and collaborations. Young people from all corners of the globe were discussing how they could use kindness to solve real-world problems, issues like poverty, homelessness, and climate change. It was incredible to see the innovative solutions people were coming up with, all grounded in the belief that one small act of kindness could spark a chain reaction of change. Lily's heart swelled with gratitude. This was what she had always wanted, genuine change, driven by compassion and selflessness. She had never imagined that a single act could grow into a movement that would have such far-reaching effects. It was humbling. After her keynote speech, Lily stepped down from the stage, greeted by a wave of applause and cheers. Her team was there waiting for her, smiling proudly. Elon had joined the event remotely, offering his support through a video message, just as he had done so many times before. "How does it feel to be here?" Elon asked during his recorded message, his face appearing on a large screen behind Lily. "To see all these people who've taken your idea and turned it into something so much bigger than any of us could have imagined?" Lily smiled at the screen, knowing that Elon's words were more than just kind words. They were a reflection of the journey they had taken together. "It's incredible," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "I started this movement with nothing but a dream and a sandwich. Now, I see people everywhere coming together to make the world a better place. It feels like everything has come full circle." But as Lily looked back on how far she had come, she couldn't help but reflect on everything she had learned. The road hadn't been easy. She had faced doubt, criticism, and moments when it seemed like everything would fall apart. There were times when she questioned herself, wondering if she was doing the right thing, especially when things got tough. But through it all, she had remained committed to one core principle: kindness. She had learned that the world didn't need more flashy campaigns or marketing strategies. It needed more people who were willing to show up, listen, and make a difference. It needed more people who were willing to make the world a little brighter, even if it was just for one person. Lily had also learned that kindness wasn't always about grand gestures or saving the world. Sometimes, it was as simple as showing up for someone when they needed you most. And other times, it was about allowing yourself to receive kindness when you were at your lowest. Like the moments when Elon had reached out to her during her darkest days, reminding her that she wasn't alone. She smiled to herself, grateful for all the people who had helped her along the way: her family, her team, Elon, and all the supporters who had believed in the ripple of kindness from the start. As the summit came to a close, Lily stood at the podium once more, this time with a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. The movement was thriving, the world was changing, and she was no longer just the girl who had given a sandwich to Elon Musk. She was the leader of a global initiative that was making a tangible difference in people's lives. The most important lesson Lily had learned throughout this journey was that kindness wasn't a means to an end. It was the journey itself. Every day, every moment, every act of compassion was a step towards something better. And if they could all commit to spreading that ripple of kindness, one act at a time, the world would inevitably be transformed. "Sometimes," Lily said, her voice strong and confident, "we think we need to change the world in big, dramatic ways. But the truth is, the world changes one person at a time, one act of kindness at a time, and together, we can create something extraordinary." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her, all of them filled with hope and determination. "The future is in our hands," Lily continued, "and I believe, with all my heart, that kindness will be the force that shapes it. As the audience erupted into applause, Lily felt the weight of everything that had happened wash over her. But this time, it wasn't the crushing weight of responsibility or fear. It was the weight of accomplishment. She had done it. She had turned her dream into a reality. And in doing so, she had shown the world what was possible when people came together with one common purpose: to make the world a kinder, more compassionate place. Back in her hotel room that night, Lily sat by the window, gazing out at the city skyline. The glow of the lights below reminded her of the countless moments of kindness that had inspired her to keep going. There were still so many challenges ahead, so many obstacles to overcome. But in that moment, Lily felt more certain than ever that she had chosen the right path. And with a smile on her face, she whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." Lily's world had shifted in ways she never thought possible. The ripple of kindness had gone from a modest grassroots movement to an international phenomenon. Her team was growing, partnerships were flourishing, and the media, once skeptical, had started to embrace the message of compassion. It was all happening so fast, and yet Lily could feel the weight of it all settling deeper into her heart. But with success came new challenges. As the movement expanded, so did the pressure. The media, once critical, now had their eyes fixed on her. There were whispers of her becoming a business mogul or a social influencer. Corporate entities began reaching out again, offering huge amounts of money, and though she had rejected similar offers before, the stakes were different now. Ripple of Kindness was no longer just an idea. It was a global brand. Lily spent countless hours in meetings with her team, trying to figure out how to scale the movement without losing its heart. Everyone had opinions, some urging her to partner with the right companies to ensure long-term sustainability, while others warned her about the risks of compromising the movement's integrity for profit. But every decision felt monumental, and the weight of it all started to weigh heavily on her. One afternoon, as Lily was meeting with a potential partner, she received a text message that stopped her in her tracks. It was from Elon. "Lily, there's something you need to hear. I'm meeting with a few executives from a major tech company tomorrow, and they're pushing for a collaboration that would significantly change the scope of the movement. They're offering a substantial investment. I know you've been hesitant about this kind of thing before, but this is different. I need you to think about it." Lily's heart raced as she read the message. She had always trusted Elon's guidance, but something about this felt different. She had fought so hard to keep Ripple of Kindness from becoming just another corporate entity, and yet now the very thing she had built was being dangled in front of her, with the promise of success at any cost. Her mind was swirling. Could she really turn down the offer? Could she afford to say no, knowing the potential impact such a partnership could have? Or was this the moment when the movement would become something she no longer recognized? That night, Lily couldn't sleep. Her mind was torn in two directions, each pulling her in opposing ways. On one hand, there was the opportunity to take Ripple of Kindness to unimaginable heights, reaching more people than ever before. On the other hand, there was the fear that by taking the deal, she might lose the very soul of the movement, the thing that made it unique and genuine. The next morning, she met with her team to discuss the offer. The room was tense. "You've worked hard for this, Lily," said Jessica, the head of operations. "But this partnership could really take us to the next level. We could fund initiatives across the globe. We could get the resources we need to actually change the world." Lily looked at her team, the people who had stood by her since the very beginning. She knew they believed in her, but she also saw the concern in their eyes. "But at what cost?" Lily asked quietly. "What happens if we lose control of our message? What if this turns into something we can't control? Are we willing to risk everything we've worked for just to grow faster?" "There's always a risk," Jessica replied. "But there's also the chance to make an even bigger impact. We can still keep the movement's heart intact. We just need to be careful." Lily leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. The decision felt impossible. She had always said that kindness was not for sale. She had always believed that the movement should remain authentic, that its power came from being rooted in the real, personal connections between people. But now, faced with an offer that could secure the future of the movement, she felt her resolve slipping. The next day, Elon called her, his voice calm but serious. "Lily, I know this isn't easy. But I want you to understand something. The world isn't just waiting for a movement like this. It's desperate for it. The kindness you've sparked has the potential to change everything. But you need resources. You need a way to keep the fire burning. Don't let your pride get in the way of something that can do more good than you can imagine. Lily closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. She trusted Elon more than anyone, but there was still a part of her that wasn't ready to let go of the purity of the movement. Could she really take this step? Days passed, and the pressure mounted. The media buzzed with speculation, wondering what Lily's next move would be. Some called her a revolutionary, others an opportunist. The uncertainty about what was happening within the movement began to leak into the public eye. People were beginning to question whether Ripple of Kindness was truly as authentic as it claimed. Lily found herself standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. She had always known that leading a movement would involve difficult decisions, but this felt different. This felt like a tipping point, one decision that could shape the future of everything she had built. Her father, who had fully recovered from his heart attack, noticed the change in her demeanor. One evening, while they sat together in their living room, he looked at her with concern. "Lily, I can see the weight of this on you," he said, his voice gentle. "You've always believed in kindness. You've always believed in doing the right thing, no matter the cost. But sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't always look the way you expect. Don't lose yourself in trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Trust your instincts. Trust the reason you started this in the first place." Lily thought about her father's words long into the night. She had started this journey because she believed in the power of kindness, not because it would make her rich or famous, but because it could change lives. But now, as the movement grew larger than she could have ever dreamed, the very thing she had created was slipping through her fingers, threatened by the very forces she had worked so hard to avoid. The next morning, after much deliberation, Lily called Elon. Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "Elon, I've made my decision," she said, her heart heavy but resolved. "I can't take the deal. Ripple of Kindness has always been about the people. It's always been about real, authentic change. I can't let it become something it was never meant to be." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Elon spoke. "I respect that, Lily," he said, his voice soft but unwavering. "I'll always support you. Whatever you need. Just remember, the world is changing, and your movement is a big part of that change. Trust in what you've built, and trust in yourself." Lily hung up the phone, a sense of peace slowly settling over her. She had made the hard choice, the right choice. She had chosen authenticity over profit, purpose over popularity. But she knew this was just the beginning of a new battle. As the movement continued to grow, it would face more challenges, more temptations, more compromises. But Lily was ready. She had the heart, the vision, and the unwavering belief that kindness would always find a way. It had been a few months since Lily's decision to reject the big corporate partnership, and while it felt like a victory for her personal values, it wasn't without its cost. The moment the decision became public, the backlash was swift and unrelenting. While many of her supporters applauded her for sticking to her principles, others criticized her for turning down millions and missing a golden opportunity to expand the movement. The media, which had once adored her and her vision, now began to ask difficult questions. They asked whether Ripple of Kindness could continue to grow without the kind of financial backing that would come from big corporations. They asked if her naive belief in grassroots activism could hold up against the pressure to scale and compete in a world driven by profit. Lily spent countless nights reading through the barrage of social media posts, the articles, the opinion pieces. It was overwhelming, to say the least. She knew that Ripple of Kindness had never been about money or fame. It had always been about the genuine power of human connection and the belief that small acts of kindness could shift the course of history. But the questions were starting to worm their way into her mind. Could the movement survive without the kind of resources it needed to keep up with its growth? Could she continue to build this dream without sacrificing the authenticity she had worked so hard to preserve? The weight of those questions started to press down on her. Lily had always been strong, resilient, and focused. But now, with her integrity on the line, she began to feel doubt creeping in. One afternoon, She received an invitation to speak at a global conference on social impact. It was a huge opportunity. Thousands of attendees were expected, and the platform would offer her a chance to explain her vision for Ripple of Kindness to a global audience. But there was a catch. The event was being sponsored by one of the largest tech companies in the world, one of the very companies she had turned down just months ago. At first, Lily was torn. This could be her chance to win back the support of critics, to show them that she was willing to engage with the corporate world in a way that didn't compromise the movement's core values. But then, her mind flashed back to the decision she had made to stay true to her mission, to avoid turning the movement into just another corporate-driven initiative. Could she really stand on that stage, knowing she was accepting the sponsorship of a company she had once rejected? Was this a betrayal of everything she had built? Lily sought counsel from the people she trusted most, her family, her team, and of course, Elon. "I can't believe I'm even considering this," Lily confessed during a late-night call with Elon. "This company, this is the very one I turned down just a few months ago. How can I face my supporters if I accept their sponsorship now? I feel like I'm losing everything I've worked for." Elon listened carefully, his voice calm and steady. "I get where you're coming from, Lily," he said. "The world is full of contradictions, and the path forward is rarely clear. But remember, just because you reject something doesn't mean you have to close the door forever. Sometimes, you have to engage with the very systems you're trying to change in order to bring about the real transformation. You don't have to abandon your values to make an impact." Lily thought about Elon's words. He was right, of course, but still, it felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of which direction to jump. In the days that followed, Lily spent a lot of time reflecting. She revisited the very roots of the Ripple of Kindness movement, the simple act of giving a sandwich to someone who needed it, and the profound ripple that act had created. She thought about her father's recovery and the power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest challenges. She thought about the millions of people who had come together to make the world kinder, one small gesture at a time. And then, something clicked. The Ripple of Kindness movement had always been about people, real people, people who cared, people who wanted to make a difference. And the world wasn't going to change unless more people were brought into that conversation, no matter where they stood. The key wasn't whether she was selling out to corporate interests. It was about using the platform she had built to keep the focus on the message. She didn't have to accept corporate money just for the sake of it, but she could use the spotlight to speak her truth. She could leverage the influence to shine a light on the movement's true values. The day of the conference arrived, and Lily stepped onto the grand stage, a sense of nervousness mixed with resolve settling in her chest. The audience was filled with CEOs, tech moguls, and philanthropists, people who had the resources to change the world. But they were also people who saw the world through a lens of profit, power, and influence. The event began with a panel discussion on the future of social change, and Lily was asked to speak about how Ripple of Kindness had grown and what it stood for. She could feel the eyes of the audience on her as she took the microphone. The familiar sense of imposter syndrome crept into her thoughts for a moment, but she shook it off. This was her moment. Lily took a deep breath and began to speak. "You've all heard of the Ripple of Kindness," she said, her voice steady, "and you've seen how it's spread around the world. You've seen how people, from all walks of life, have embraced the idea that small acts of kindness can create change. But today, I want to talk about something else. How we, as individuals and as corporations, can use our influence to amplify that ripple." She paused, scanning the audience. She could feel the tension. Some were waiting for her to endorse the system, to make the pitch that would make them feel validated. Others were waiting to see if she would back down. We live in a world where profit often outweighs purpose. And let's be real, corporations can play a huge role in creating change. But I believe that change can't come from the top down. It has to come from the bottom up. It's the people who are leading this charge. It's the individuals who are showing up, making small, everyday decisions to be kinder, to be more compassionate. She looked directly at the audience, her voice growing stronger. And yes, we need resources. We need partners. But we must always remember that those partnerships should never dilute our message. The message is simple: kindness, empathy, connection. If we can make these the driving forces of the world, then profit won't be the problem. profit will be the byproduct of a more compassionate society. The room was silent for a moment, and then the applause began. It wasn't loud or overwhelming, but it was genuine. She had spoken from the heart, and the audience had felt it. That evening, as Lily walked off the stage, she felt a sense of clarity. She hadn't compromised her values. Instead, she had used the opportunity to remind everyone in that room about what truly mattered. And if the movement could continue to grow with that foundation intact, well, then maybe the future was even brighter than she had imagined. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elon. "You did it, Lily. You didn't sell out. You made the world a little better, and that's what matters." Lily smiled. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the partnerships. It was about staying true to the heart of the movement. And in that moment, she knew everything was going to be okay. Lily had expected a lot from the Ripple of Kindness Global Summit she had just attended. What she hadn't expected was how deeply it would affect her. The conversations, the meetings, the collaborations, it all left her feeling like she was part of something bigger than herself. For the first time, she felt the weight of the movement not as a burden, but as a profound responsibility. It was like watching the seeds she had planted years ago finally take root in the world. As the summit wound down, Lily and her team headed back to their hotel rooms to prepare for the final presentation of the day, a roundtable discussion about the future of social movements. She had been asked to speak about Ripple of Kindness's vision, its future, and what it truly stood for. But Lily wasn't prepared for what happened next. She had barely settled into her seat at the round table when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Is this really what we should be focusing on?" The voice came from a well-known social media influencer named Morgan, who had built her brand around promoting personal success. She was known for her bold opinions and fearless social commentary. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She knew who Morgan was. She had read her posts, watched her videos. And now, here she was, sitting across from her, asking a question that cut straight to the heart of Ripple of Kindness. "You're talking about kindness," Morgan continued, her eyes narrowing. "But how do you explain that to people who are just trying to survive? People who can barely make ends meet? Can kindness really change anything when people are just trying to feed their families?" Lily felt the room go silent. She knew Morgan's question was valid. It was a question that had been asked time and time again by critics, by skeptics, and even by people who had been struggling for years. The world was full of real pain, real suffering, and here they were, discussing kindness as if it could solve everything. For a brief moment, Lily felt her confidence falter. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. The room was waiting, everyone's eyes fixed on her. She thought back to her journey, her father's recovery, the sandwich she had given to Elon Musk, the people who had reached out to her in times of desperation. It had always been about the small things. The small, everyday acts of kindness that, when added together, could create a profound shift. It wasn't about changing the world overnight. It was about changing one person's day, one life, at a time. But was that enough? Was it enough to change the world? Lily took a deep breath and finally spoke. "You're right," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Kindness can't solve every problem, but it can make someone feel seen. It can make someone feel like they matter. And sometimes, that's all someone needs to hold on for just one more day." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I've been where many of you have been. I know what it's like to feel like the world is closing in on you. To feel like kindness is a luxury you can't afford. But kindness isn't just for the rich or the successful. It's for everyone. It's the thread that connects us, no matter where we are or what we're going through. It's the thing that reminds us that we're not alone." Lily looked around the room. She saw Morgan's expression soften, though she didn't say anything. And then, Lily continued, "I'm not here to say that kindness will fix everything. I'm here to say that if we all take a step back and treat the people around us with more compassion, with more understanding, if we make it a priority in our daily lives, it will change the way we view the world. And when we view the world differently, we start to see solutions, not just problems." There was a long silence after she finished speaking. And then, to her surprise, Morgan spoke up again. "You know," she said, her voice quieter now, "maybe you're right. I've spent so much time focusing on getting ahead, on building my brand, on proving something. Maybe I've forgotten that kindness isn't a transaction. It's just who we are. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. She hadn't expected Morgan to agree, let alone to admit that she had missed something important. But sometimes that was all it took. One conversation, one open moment where the walls came down and the truth was allowed to surface. The round table ended not with grand applause or dramatic speeches, but with something quieter, more profound, a shift in perspective. As the attendees stood to leave, Lily caught sight of Morgan walking toward her, her expression thoughtful. "I have to admit," Morgan said, offering a small but genuine smile, "you've got a point. I've been too focused on the big picture to see the little things. Maybe I've been missing something." Lily smiled back, her heart lighter than it had been in days. "Kindness is often overlooked because it's not flashy," Lily replied. "But it's always there, just waiting to be recognized. It's the small things that matter most." As the two women shared a brief moment of understanding, Lily felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe it was true that she couldn't solve every problem in the world, but she had a role to play. She could keep pushing forward, no matter how small the steps, because every act of kindness was a victory in itself. Later that evening, as Lily sat in her hotel room, she reflected on the events of the day. The questions, the doubts, the hard conversations, they were all part of the journey. It had been difficult, but it had also been necessary. She thought about the people she had met throughout the years, the ones who had shared their stories of struggle, of triumph, and of kindness. She thought about the little boy who had received a sandwich, about the homeless man who had been given a warm meal, about her own family and their sacrifices. The ripple had never just been about kindness. It was about connection, and in that connection, there was strength. Lily had started this movement with one simple act, but it had turned into something that was touching lives all over the world. It wasn't about changing everything all at once. It was about making a difference, one small act at a time. And in that moment, Lily knew that she had made the right choice. She hadn't given up on the world. She hadn't given up on herself. She had stayed true to her belief that kindness had the power to transform lives. The battle for integrity hadn't been easy. But in the end, the quiet revolution was happening, and Lily was right at the heart of it. A few weeks had passed since the summit. The ripple of kindness that Lily had sparked continued to spread, growing in unexpected ways. The world was beginning to take notice, and her decision to stay true to her values was proving to be the right one. More people were reaching out, asking how they could contribute to the movement, how they could be a part of something that felt real, something that didn't demand perfection but simply human connection. Lily had never imagined it would get this big. At first, Ripple of Kindness was a small idea, one fueled by a personal mission, a way to honor her father's struggle, to honor the people who helped him recover. But now, it was becoming a global force. She had built something from the ground up, something that didn't rely on big companies, flashy ads, or viral moments. It relied on people, on stories, on kindness. On one quiet morning, as Lily sat in her office reviewing emails and planning the next step for the movement, she received a call. The voice on the other end was familiar. "Elon Musk?" "Lily, I've been following your progress," Elon said. "I've been keeping an eye on what you're doing with Ripple of Kindness, and I have to tell you, it's impressive. The movement is growing, and people are responding. But I want to ask you something important." Lily leaned forward, sensing the gravity in his voice. "What is it, Elon?" "I think it's time for the world to see what this movement can really do. What if we launch a global campaign? A challenge that invites people everywhere to perform small acts of kindness, share their stories, and see how far it spreads. A way to make kindness go viral, but in a real way, without the exploitation. What do you think?" Lily's heart raced. It was a bold idea, one that could take Ripple of Kindness to a whole new level. But there was a risk. With something that big, it was easy for the message to get lost, to be diluted by the noise of social media and marketing. She wasn't sure she was ready for that, or if it was even the right direction. "Elon, it's a great idea, but I'm not sure. I don't want to lose the heart of what we've built. This movement has always been about authenticity. What if it becomes just another trend? What if people lose sight of what's important?" Elon was quiet for a moment. "I get it. You've built something special, Lily. But sometimes, you have to take that risk." The message can still be pure, and we can control how it's presented. We don't have to compromise. But if we want to change the world, we need to bring as many people into the conversation as possible. Lily sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She had always been careful, always protective of the integrity of Ripple of Kindness, but this could be the opportunity to amplify its impact, to touch even more lives. Was she ready to take that step? A few days later, Lily made her decision. She and Elon had agreed to launch the campaign, but only if they could ensure that the values of the movement remained intact. They created a plan. The campaign would focus on real, unfiltered stories of kindness. No filters, no branding, just people sharing their genuine moments of compassion and connection. They called it the power of one. The idea was simple. Encourage people from all walks of life to perform one act of kindness and share it with the world. Whether it was helping a neighbor, volunteering at a shelter, or just offering a word of encouragement to someone in need, the message was clear. Kindness is contagious, and it only takes one person to start the chain reaction. The launch of the campaign was a quiet one at first. They started small, using social media to encourage people to participate. But soon, stories began to flood in. Videos of children helping their parents, strangers hugging in the streets, community gardens being planted, people offering their seats to others on buses. It wasn't just grand gestures. It was the everyday acts of compassion that most people didn't even think twice about. But when these moments were shared, they sparked something in others. People began to feel inspired, like they, too, could make a difference. One small act could have a ripple effect that spread across the world. And as the campaign gained momentum, more and more people joined in. Celebrities, influencers, everyday heroes. Everyone had a story to tell. The campaign went viral, but in the best way possible. The message wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about people coming together to share love and kindness. Lily watched from the sidelines as the power of one began to snowball. She was in awe of the stories that were pouring in, each one more heartwarming than the last. And as the movement grew, something incredible began to happen. It started to bridge divides. People from different backgrounds, different cultures, different political ideologies were all participating in the same challenge. They weren't agreeing on everything, but they were agreeing on one thing: kindness mattered. Lily realized, as the weeks passed, that Ripple of Kindness was never just about the money or the fame. It had never been about becoming the next big thing. It had always been about showing the world that, despite everything else, people still cared. That in the chaos of life, there was always a moment where humanity could shine through. One evening, as Lily sat at her kitchen table scrolling through social media, she paused on a video shared by a young girl in a small town. The video showed the girl handing a sandwich to an elderly man sitting on a park bench. The simplicity of the moment, just two strangers connecting over a small act of kindness, struck Lily deeply. The girl's smile, the man's gratitude, the joy in their eyes. It was everything the movement was about. Lily sat back in her chair and smiled. She realized that the true power of kindness wasn't in grand gestures. It wasn't about changing the world overnight. It was about changing someone's day, giving them hope, and reminding them that they were not alone. As the months passed, Ripple of Kindness continued to grow. The campaign was a success beyond anything Lily had imagined. But more importantly, it had created something lasting. A community of people who were united not by their differences, but by their shared belief in the power of kindness. Lily received a message from Elon one afternoon. "Your campaign changed everything. People are responding in ways I never thought possible. This is just the beginning, Lily. Don't stop." Lily smiled as she typed her response. It's not about stopping. It's about keeping the ripple going, one act at a time. And with that, she knew. She had done exactly what she set out to do. She had created a movement. She had made a difference. And it had all started with one simple act of kindness: a sandwich. It had been over a year since Lily had first met Elon Musk, and their worlds had collided in the most unexpected of ways. What started as a simple act of kindness, handing a sandwich to a stranger, had spiraled into a global movement, touching lives across continents, and forever changing the way people saw kindness. Ripple of Kindness had grown far beyond her wildest dreams. It was no longer just her project. It was a shared vision for a better, more compassionate world. The streets of New York were bustling as always, but to Lily, they felt different now. She had just returned from a visit to several major cities where the campaign had left its mark. Every corner of the world, it seemed, was participating in the power of one. As she walked past a cafe, she overheard two strangers discussing how they had been inspired to help a homeless family they'd met on the streets. Further down, she saw a school principal posting photos of students cleaning up a local park. Everywhere she went, the effects of kindness were visible, and the world was changing for the better. Lily smiled to herself. It had taken so much effort, so much heartache and uncertainty to get here. But now, all the struggles seemed worth it. She had created something that wasn't just about charity. It was about giving people the tools to make a real difference. It was about planting seeds of hope, one act of kindness at a time. She sat down for lunch in her favorite little cafe in the heart of the city. It was one of the few places that hadn't been overrun by the frenzy of the world's attention. It was a sanctuary, a reminder of where she'd come from. As she sipped her coffee, she reflected on everything that had happened. Her father's illness, the struggle to stay true to her mission, the challenges of keeping Ripple of Kindness authentic amidst the noise. And then, there was the moment that changed everything. The moment she had handed that sandwich to Elon Musk. Had it really been just a year? It felt like a lifetime. She had never imagined that her small gesture of kindness would lead her to where she was today. But that one small act had set everything into motion, in ways she couldn't have planned or predicted. Elon had been the catalyst, but it was the people who had taken the message and made it their own that had truly changed the world. The ripple of kindness wasn't just her movement anymore. It was a collective movement. People from all walks of life, students, professionals, parents, children, had found their place in it, found a reason to believe again that the world could be better. Every person had a story. Every person had a moment of kindness they could share. Lily's phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah, the woman she had met at the summit who had become a close friend and collaborator. Sarah, Lily, we've been invited to a United Nations conference. They want to talk about how we can expand kindness into global policy. Can you believe that? Lily's heart skipped a beat. A United Nations invitation? That was the kind of recognition she had never dared to dream of. She stared at the message, feeling a swell of pride in her chest. From the small town where it all began to a global stage, this was no longer just about spreading kindness. This was about creating systemic change. It was about making kindness the foundation for a better world, for policies, for education, for social movements. She quickly typed back, "This is incredible. I'm in. Let's change the world." The meeting at the United Nations was a whirlwind. It was a gathering of minds who had spent years working on global issues, but for the first time, kindness was being discussed as a central part of the conversation. From education to healthcare to the environment, policymakers were looking at ways to implement kindness as a framework for how society functioned. Lily found herself sitting in a room full of leaders, visionaries, and activists. But as she spoke, she didn't feel out of place. She had become a voice for something much bigger than herself. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and addressed the room. "We all know the world has its problems," Lily began, her voice steady but passionate. "We see it every day. But what if we stopped focusing on what divides us and started focusing on what connects us? What if kindness, real, meaningful human kindness, was the foundation of everything we do, not just as individuals, but as a collective society?" She paused, watching the room. "We're facing challenges that seem impossible to overcome. Climate change, poverty, inequality. But the one thing that has always worked in the face of adversity is the human spirit. And the human spirit thrives on connection. We've spent so long looking for solutions in technology, in economics, in politics. But what if we started by looking inside ourselves? By focusing on the simple, everyday acts that bind us together as human beings?" The room was quiet as Lily finished speaking. She hadn't expected applause. This wasn't a moment for applause. But she knew, deep down, that she had said something important, something that could spark real change. Over the next several months, Ripple of Kindness was officially integrated into international development policies in several countries. Governments began to incorporate kindness into their national agendas, and global NGOs started running initiatives focused on kindness as a core value. More than just charity, kindness was becoming a way of life. Lily often thought back to that moment when she handed that sandwich to Elon Musk. She could never have predicted where it would take her, the lives it touched, the hearts it opened, and the way it had changed the course of history. But she had also learned an important lesson in those months of uncertainty and growth. Kindness isn't about what you do for others. It's about what happens when you give without expecting anything in return. It's about what happens when people see the best in each other and act on it. As the years passed, ripple of kindness continued to grow. Lily didn't feel the need to lead it anymore. The movement had taken on a life of its own. It was no longer hers. It was everyone's. People across the world had learned to weave kindness into their everyday lives, transforming entire communities. It was the quiet revolution that had been unfolding right under the surface. And as Lily looked out the window of her apartment one last time, watching the sun set over the skyline, she knew something profound. The world hadn't changed overnight. It hadn't even changed in one grand gesture. But it had changed in 1,000 small moments, like a little girl handing a sandwich to a man who needed it, like a single act of kindness that sparked a ripple, and the ripple, over time, turned into a wave. Lily smiled, content in the knowledge that she had been part of something beautiful. The ripple would continue to spread, and that was enough. This marks the end of Little Girl Gives a Sandwich to Elon Musk. 7 days later, something amazing happens. Thank you for following Lily's journey. I hope it's been an inspiring and heartwarming read. Let me know if you'd like to explore any more stories or ideas.